First Book of Moses, Bereshith, Chapter 1, First Creation by Elohim. In the former time periods, as a powerful sign of working, chief son and heir Elohim filled with choice things, behold, as a sign Shemayim, the place of the names, and behold, as a sign Aratz, the chief place of running. But observe how Aratz was unorganized and empty, and Shishak rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach Elohim, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters. Elohim then declared, light he will exist, and light he will exist. And Elohim gazed upon that beautiful light, and Elohim made distinctive the light from the darkness. And to the light Elohim called out the name Ya'um, and to the darkness he called out the name Leah Laha. This was the close and the dawn of the first age.
The Ketub Abarayath, or the Paleo Hebrew, is a language over 5,000 years old. It chronicles a story branching forth from ancient time. His story, Yahweh. Walk into his story. Read the Paleo Hebrew scriptures.
Today's sponsor is brought to you by Restoration. The restoration of Yosef with his brothers, 10 brothers, I guess 11 if you count Benjamin, and his father, Yaakov, but also the restoration of Judah or Yehuda with Yasharel through Messiah, through Yahshua, Messiah. Shabbat Shalom from under the throne, which is above the dome. My name is noelhadley. This is the Unexpected Cosmology. I'm happy to be here. Hopefully you guys are too. I had a pretty good week, pretty eventful week. I'm back on Facebook. Gave that about 5 years. Took about 5 years off Facebook. It was pretty volatile back then. You know, everybody in 2020 thought it was the end of the world. And, you know, all of our true human nature came out and we were going at each other's throat, just attacking each other left and right because we all thought, you know, it was the end. I guess that's one way to go out. And I decided to return and I started what a way to advertise this. I decided to start a Unexpected Cosmology group. For those of you who are on Facebook, please come by, say hi. Introduce yourself, join our community over there. I've been trying to get you guys to come on Discord for the last 5 years. So just come on over to Facebook, though our Discord community is still awesome. And this is just another extension of it. And I survived Christmas week. I assume all of you did. I will have to say it was kind of like going back to the old neighborhood, you know, maybe like if you've ever done it, you've moved away, you moved across the country and you come back and you see like the same neighbors doing the same thing. It was like nothing had changed almost in 5 years. And just scrolling down the post this week, it's like, Merry Christmas. Christmas is pagan. Merry Christmas. Christmas is pagan. Merry Christmas. Christmas is pagan. I think Facebook is determined to make me, give me a split personality going through all that. Anyways, we survived it. Glad you guys are here. And this month is extra fun because this isn't just a preparation day for everybody. This is also the Sabbath day for those of you on the lunar Sabbath. In fact, I have noticed that there is a bit of an uptick viewership already, and I'm kind of wondering if that's why. So Shabbat Shalom to you, those of you finishing up your Sabbath day, those of you on Friday, and also those of you who will be joining me tomorrow. Shabbat Shalom to you guys too. Let's get right into this tonight. Starting out, I'll go ahead and talk about this really quickly. It's just kind of a little promo poster here. Talk 2026. I'm not going to be doing Passover this year. That just didn't really work out. But I will be doing Sukkot. And I will have more details for you maybe like a month from now, but just go ahead and jot down on your calendar September 25th through October 4th. That's a Friday through a Sunday in Branson, Missouri, just I guess right outside Branson. I haven't, whatever. It's all there. And this is just gonna be an amazing time of our community, our family, just a family reunion, us getting together, camping together for an entire you know 8 days or so, 9 days. Hopefully, we don't get at each other's throat by the end of it as well. But looking forward to it. Looking forward to meeting you guys. This will be very affordable. There were things out of my hand with the Passover retreat this last year where we're actually had to pay per bed, right? And you couldn't put two people in a bed. You know what I'm saying? Like it was expensive. This is going to be very, very, very affordable. Just bring your own tent, throw it down on the ground type of event. I'll have more to say about that in the coming weeks. Now, one of the ways that you can support what we are doing here is, I don't talk about this enough, is the Tuck Book Club. And what the book club is, it's through Patreon. And this is something that Rebecca and I built up together, is for every single dollar that you give to us every month through Patreon, we give it back. What? Every month in the form of a gift certificate that you can spend in the store. So if you give us 25, 30, 50, 75, 100, 150 a month to support us, we give you that same amount back. And so what's great about this is that, you can go buy, or we have many books in there. We are constantly introducing new authors, bringing them in. We have more coming in 2026. I'm really looking forward to the poetry wing coming in. But this will include, of course, maybe I have this right here. Well, I'll get to that. We have vendors in there as well. Don's products and his teas and his health products. We'll be introducing some more health products from another vendor here very soon. And this is a way you could also support those vendors. That money goes to them. So it doesn't just help support us, it supports the entire community, everybody that's involved with this. So that's something I highly recommend coming in. And you don't have to every month. You don't have to spend 25 or 30 on the gift certificate. You could just leave it in there, or you could even buy the same book twice. You're like, well, this is a great book. What am I, I'd love my friends to have this. Come back the next month, get it again for them. That's what's great about this ministry and supporting this ministry. One of my favorite choices, my preferences, is the Torah portion study guide. This is where we take the English from the Masoretic. We take the Greek LXX tradition, we take the Aramaic Targum, and we take Pamela's beautiful Paleo translation, and we line them up side by sides for your study notes so that you can go through all the Torah portions and look at all the different traditions and compare and contrast. As you know, here at the Unexpected Cosmology, we love different source material, and this is my absolute favorite. And this is something as a ministry that is unique that we give out that you could redeem with the Tuck Book Club. And the other here is the Paleo Hebrew Scriptures. This has become my life ambition, my goal. The reason I get up in the morning is I want to see the Paleo Hebrew Scriptures completed and fully published. And I thank everybody for supporting this, and we need your support. This is something that, of course, you can also get in the Tuck Book Club. You can get all of Pamela's books. And as a reminder, I'll be talking about this probably for a little while, is Rakia, which is the poetry wing that we have launched. And I'm hoping to encourage Christian poets. They're going to have to, put up with some of our conspiratorial stuff here, like a little 9/11 truth and, that kind of stuff. You could just hear it in the breeze. The earth is flat, kind of stuff like that. Right. But nevertheless, this is, I'm hoping to put out some really cutting edge poetry. And so far, I've been premiering poetry from those in our community. If you are in our community, you write poetry, just still, like, what do you have to lose? Just send it in to me, and I'll give it a read. I actually been, I can't really do anything without putting my fingerprints on it. So I've actually been, putting out some of my own poetry as of late. You can go check that out. Let's get right into it tonight. Thank you all for being here. Drink a little coffee before it gets cold. We have one more Torah portion after this to complete Genesis, and then, can you believe it, we're already into Exodus. And most people, they'll read the Bible and then they'll check out at Mount Sinai. You get to the 10 commandments, Exodus 20 through 22 area in there, and then people check out. They're like, I'm good on the rest of human history. I'll just jump over to Jesus. Uh, and so I love it when we get there and we go into uncharted territory. And that's when, you really actually get into the heart of the Torah. And I told you my campaign promise at the beginning of these Torah portions this year. For those of you who were tuning in, like Genesis 1 through 6, I said stick around because my goal is to show you how the entire basically the Bible, like if you gut out the Torah, the rest of the Bible doesn't function. It just you just rip out the heart of anything. You're just a zombie at that point, and that's unfortunately what the Bible is for a lot of people. And they don't realize it. I've been showing a lot of that, but we're about to really get into some deep territory. And tonight I want to show how, of course, I'll give you an amazing example. I think it's amazing tonight of how the Torah foreshadows the coming Messiah, Yahshua. So here we go. Then Yahwadaha, or Judah, approached him and said, to me, Adonuya, and he's approaching Joseph, grant now for your slave to speak to the ears of my Adon, and let not your anger burn with your slave. So pause already talking about reconciliation. Like this is Yehuda having to come to terms with the fact of the Torah itself and the law of the Torah. And he has to make a restitution. And he's like, you know what? I sold my brother into slavery. Make me a slave. And he has no clue, of course, that he's actually speaking to his brother yet. For you are to me like Pharaoh. My Adon asked of his slave, saying, have you a father or brother living? And we replied to my Adon, a father lives with us, an old man, and a lad of his old age, the youngest. But his brother is dead. And besides him, there is none from his mother. So his father loves him. And of course, this is speaking of Benjamin. If you forget last week, Joseph is kind of holding his brother hostage. Then you said to your slaves, bring him to me that I may set my eyes on him. But we replied to my Adon, the youth is not able to leave his father, for if he leaves his father, then he will die. You, however, said to your slaves, if you do not bring him down, your youngest brother with you, you shall not again see my face. So he's basically saying, look, we just did everything you asked. We didn't even want to bring Benjamin. He's really precious to our father because he's the last living son through a wife that he really loved, through Rachel. We're all from Leah, or the concubines. We just did everything you said, and now you keep making new rules. It sounds like as you're going along. And when we went up to your slave, my father, he was informed of the demand of my Adon, so that when our father said, return and buy us a little food, we replied, we cannot go down unless our youngest brother is with us. Then your slave, our father, said to us, you know that my woman bore me 2 lads, and one went from me. And I said, alas, he has been torn to pieces, and I shall see him no more. And if you take this one from my face, and an accident should happen to him, you will bring my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. One of the things I was thinking about this week is that there's a lot of heavy dialogue in this Torah portion and the last Torah portion, and it's repetitive. Like it's like somebody says something, and then the next person said, you said this, and then someone else goes and report, they said this, and this is what we're going to do. And then they go do something, and then they rephrase it again. You said this and this and this, and we did this, and we're just, so on and so forth. I'm like, why is this so repetitive? And it is interesting that this is the heaviest dialogue we have in the entire book of Genesis leading up to this. For example, with Adam and Eve, or I should say Eve with the serpent, it's just like a few lines of dialogue. And you figure that the conversation that Eve actually had with the serpent was like, it could have been 20 minutes, right? Like in 20 minutes, that's like let's say a page is like 3 minutes. So, you're looking at several pages, right, of dialogue between them. And here's what I think is happening. I think that the story of the patriarchs, the reconciliation between Joseph and his 11 brothers was performed orally like a stage play. And I think that all the different Hebrew children, or maybe adults, they would dress up as their forefathers, who for the longest time would have been alive, and they would just rehearse the story over and over again. And this could actually be the condensed version if Jasher is legitimate. It means that Jasher gives additional details, that Moses kind of tightened up the hatches on this. But I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're actually seeing something that could have been performed year after year after year, up to the point they came out of the Exodus, as a way to remember it before it was written down. So now, if I should go to your slave, my father, and the youth is not with us, whose life is bound to his life, it will be then, when he observes that the youth is not with us, he will die. And your slave will cause the gray hairs of your slave, our father, to go down in agony to the grave. Besides, your slave pledged himself for the youth to my father, saying, if we do not bring him back to you, then let me be banished from my father all my days. You see what I'm saying? It's a lot of exposition here. So now I pray, let your slave remain instead of the youth as a slave into Adonijah, and let the youth return with his brothers. For if I go up to my father and the youth is not with me, then I shall see the misery that will come upon my father. So, in the great quotes in history, one of the great quotes would be, ask not what your country can do to you, spoken by Kennedy in 1960-ish. Well, one of the great quotes in history is from Yehuda in the years 1876 to 1875 BCE, respectively. Nobody really knows whether it was 1876 or 1875. It's just a little guesstimate there. But this is what he said. He said, "So now I pray, let your slave remain instead of the youth as a slave unto Adonijah, and let the youth return with his brothers. For if I go up to my father and the youth is not with me, then I shall see the misery that will come upon my father." This has been, of course, quoted to time of long duration. And it's kind of interesting that when we get into Paul's midrash, those would be the letters that are written at the end of the Bible. I consider them midrashes. Very popular amongst rabbinical community to write commentary on the Torah, which is what Paul is ultimately doing in his brilliant thinker about the Torah. And this is what he says, being a slave, his connection with slave and Yehuda. If there be therefore any consolation in Mashiach, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels and mercies, fulfill ye my joy, that ye be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Yeshua, Messiah, or Yahushua HaMashiach, who being in the form of Elohim, thought it not robbery to be equal with Elohim, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon himself the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Now, Yosef has already gone through the humbling process. I mean, we've seen it over the last few weeks with that psychopathic woman that he was had to serve, and he knew no end to those miseries as she was constantly flinging herself upon him and showing off her ankles and her elbows and that kind of stuff. And now it is Yehuda's turn. He is very, this guy's a macho dude. He's got a lot of testosterone. He's the kind of guy, you go to the gym. If you want to find Judah, you go over there to the mirrors, and he's over there kissing his arm as he's lifting up the weights, and quite the weights too. I'm not going to get to it tonight. This guy could take, huge boulders and throw them up and then crush them, right? This guy is the Hercules of his day, literally. Well, I can't say literally Hercules, but you guys know my drift. He's a mighty man. He might as well be a Nephilim, right? This guy is very strong. The ladies love him. The ladies get Judah into a lot of trouble, and now he has to get to the point where he humbles himself to the point of a servant in order to reconcile with his brother. And he doesn't. The beautiful thing about this is he doesn't even know that's his brother yet, right? that the point of this dream that Joseph has is that he needs to be able to humble himself, and this is the kind of people that Yahuwah wants to form. He's creating this entire story to say, this is the kind of people that I want. So let's look at the idea of Yehuda as ransom, or Yahshua as a ransom for many. The last one came from Philippians chapter 2, in case you were unsure and you wanted to frantically look for a chapter and verse. Philippians 2, 4-8. This comes from 1 Timothy 2, 1-6. I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceful life in all righteousness and honesty. Did you get that? So, amongst all the bitterness out there, or all the dislike of the people leading us, and I'm not just talking about the Trump administration. I should have taken this more to heart under the Biden administration, and whoever comes next. We should be praying for the kings in authority. We know that our Messiah is King of Kings, Lord of Lords. He is over all kings, all authority, and that they will answer to him. But we want to pray that let's see, Paul's words, for kings and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceful life in all righteousness and honesty, meaning that we want to have the freedom to be able to live the life that we want to live in order to honor Yah, and we don't want the government getting in the way of that. We want that freedom, right? So our prayers should be directed at that. For this is good and acceptable in the sight of Allah, our Savior. Did you get that? That kind of prayer is good and acceptable. So if you're ever wondering if there's a good and acceptable prayer that you can take up, that's one right there. Who will have all men to be saved and to come into the knowledge of the truth. That's a whole different discussion right there about the salvation of all men. For there is one Allah and one mediator between Allah and men, the man Yahshua Messiah, who gave himself a ransom for all, to be testified in due time. Again, I'm connecting this with the scene before us, if you are unaware. Romans 9, 1-5 says this: I say the truth in Mashiach, I lie not. That's always good to know, that Paul, that you're not lying about this, because a lot of people wonder about that. My conscience also bearing me witness in the Ruach HaKodesh, that I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart, for I could wish that myself were accursed from Messiah for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertain the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the service of Allahayam and the promises, whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Messiah came, who is over all, Allahayam, blessed forever. Amen. So you can see right there that he's putting himself really, if we can see that Yosef in this example is the Messiah, and he is unifying. We're gonna develop this more tonight. Unifying you could say the Gentiles with Judah. I'd rather just say Israel and Yehuda. Israel became the Goyim, as you know, and we are all Israel. And this is, it's interesting because people really attack Paul for this. So like, what did you do, Paul? What did you do was so bad? Is this really redeemable? Would God really choose you as service for him? And it's like, well, you can see the comparison here with Judah. Judah did something really bad too. In fact, all the brothers did. They did something pretty naughty. And Yah still brought them to restoration and to forgiveness, and he blessed them in Egypt. 1 Corinthians 12 says this, and I guess I asked the question, if Yosef represents Messiah and Benjamin represents the Gentiles, and the unified brothers are the complete body of Messiah. So this is what it says in 1 Corinthians. Now you are Christ's body and individually parts of it. And Allahayam has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing, helps, administrations, and various kinds of tongues. All are not apostles, are they? All are not prophets, are they? All are not teachers, are they? This is like a tongue twister. All are not workers of miracles, are they? All do not have the gifts of healing, do they? All do not speak with tongues, do they? All do not interpret, do they? But earnestly desire the greater gifts. So I want to give you an example here. Like, let's say that each of the 12 sons of Jacob represents a different body part or member of the body of Messiah. Now, I said 12, but let's just say that Joseph in this example is Messiah, okay? And that the body parts are being reunited in order to function in Egypt. So, example of a body part would be Naphtali had the swiftness of a deer. None of the other brothers had this ability. This is what it says in Yashar 39. And Naphtaliah, or Naphtali, went up with his not wrath. It could have been the call of a wraith, but his wrath excited mites and sprang upon the first wall to see what caused the noise of shouting, which they had heard in the city. And Issachar and Zebulun drew nigh to break the doors of the city, and they opened the gates of the city and came into the city. Now, the context here is this is after the rape of their sister Dinah, and they just go ape crazy on Shechem. And after that, all the kings come together like, we got to get rid of these guys. And these 10 brothers, they, like, Benjamin is just a baby at this point. Joseph's gone. And I'm sorry, Joseph's still there. I'm sorry. He's not sold yet. He's back home. And they go and take out, they're like going and taking out castle, like walled cities. And so the scene here is Naphtali is like leaping. It's almost like in Lord of the Rings, like you could see like with Legolas or something, but he's like leaping up on this wall and taking people out with his bow and arrow. And Naphtali leaped from the first wall to the second and came to assist his brothers. And the inhabitants of Gash, who were upon the wall, seeing that Naphtali was the third who had come up to assist his brothers, they all fled and descended into the city. And Jacob and all his sons and all their young men came to the city to them. Now, these battle scenes go on and on again. I wanted to give you an example. This one comes from the Testament of Naphtali, and it says, "And I was swift on my feet like a deer, and my father Jacob appointed me for all messages." This is the kind of USPS or FedEx service you want, huh? "And as a deer did, he gave me his blessing." Give this guy a pay raise at Amazon. Fun little fact. I'm not sourcing the information tonight, but when I do read through all the newspaper clippings of wild man or / Sasquatch of the 19th century, which I'm going to do in a couple weeks, you're going to see account after account after account where they describe the wild man very much like Naphtali. Kind of interesting that he can like run with the swift. He's actually, the wild man was quicker than deer or gazelles, and he would leap and he could like run on top of things and not break them. Really interesting. You don't get that with the Sasquatch research today. And it makes me wonder if each of these brothers had like powers of some of these mighty men, these Nephilim like creatures. And this comes from Yashar 56. Verse 59 says, "And Naphtali hearkened to the voice of Joseph, and he hastened and ran to go down to Mitzrayim." The context here is that this is I think it's the death after Jacob died, and they're trying to bury him. And Esau shows up with his goons, his sons and stuff, and they're trying to cause trouble. Anyways, Naphtali, he runs from Canaan all the way back to Egypt, one marathon sprint. Naphtali was lighter on foot than any of the stags that were upon the wilderness, for he would go upon ears of corn without crushing them. That comes from Yashar 56. And then they come down and give Esau and his sons a beat down. Of course, you can see, I could probably take you through each of the 12 sons and show the different coat of arms throughout Europe, and showing that here is, the tribe of Naphtali still doing well, still using their forefather as their symbol all throughout Europe. All right. So the body of Messiah as seen in the 12 brothers, as if we weren't already looking at that. This is going to be next week's Torah portion. I am jumping ahead just to kind of help illustrate this point. I'm going to read through this quickly and show how each of these brothers prophetically had a piece of the puzzle that, again, when they are, unfortunately, when Israel was divorced, it was kind of like you could say like almost like the body of Mashiach was severed. And this is why it's so important when Paul is writing about the unity, having the unity of the body, that finally Israel's coming back in, and this is the completed picture again. Don't screw it up all over again. So I'm going to read through this really quickly. Yaakov afterwards called his sons and declared, assemble and I will inform you. You like that? Avengers assemble. What will befall you in future times? Collect and listen, sons of Yaakov. Yes, listen to your father, Yasharel. To Reuben, Reuben, the first of my vigor, you are the crown of my passion, excelling in beauty, excelling in strength, boiling like water. You lost command for mounting your father's bed. Yes, defiling my honor's abode. He was like standing there like, because, he reminded in front of his whole family what he had, the very wicked act that he had done with his concubine. To Simon and Levi, or Waya. Simon and Levi are brothers. Cruel weapons are hidden with them. Keep in mind the ones that went into Shechem and had they like literally they got together and brainstormed and like, what if we circumcise them all and just like massacred them? And they both agreed to this. To their plottings go not my nefash. So that's where he's saying, like, I was not with you guys when you guys did this. My honor joined not their clan, for they murdered guiltless men and joyfully murdered a prince. Curse their crime as it is great, and their transgression for it is cruel. For it is sorely troubled Yaakov and Yasharel ashamed. To Yehuda, you shall guide your brothers. And this is what we actually see. This is why I think Judah takes center focus with the Joseph story, where he's literally leading his brothers at this point. He is the leader. It's interesting. You don't see Levi or Reuben or Simon leading, and he is setting by example by humbling himself to the point of a servant. Anyways, Yehuda, you shall guide your brothers. Your hand shall be on the neck of your foes. To you shall the sons of your father bow. As a young lion, Yehuda, for plunder, my son springs from his couch like a lion. And as a lioness, who dare rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Yehuda, or the giver of law from between his feet, until Shaya Laha arrive. And to him shall be the obedience of the peoples, bound to the vine like an ass, and a colt the son of a stepper. He washed his garments in wine and his clothes in the blood of clusters. He shall be dark and flashing as grapes, and his teeth be white as milk. To Zebulun, Zebulun shall dwell on the shore of the sea, on the seashore of the ships, and extremities towards the fishery. To Issachar, or Yashashakar. As a strong ass, Issachar, he lies in the stall, and he saw that rest was beautiful, excellent, functional, and the land that it was pleasant. So he gives his back to the load and becomes a servant for hire. To Dan, Dan shall judge his people. Like a sceptered prince of Yasharel, Dan shall exist a viper in the path. An adder laid in the road, he will bite my heels. The horses he will throw the riders backwards. For your salvation I have waited, O Yahuwah. To Gad, not a very pleasant Dan, is it? That's, of course, you guys probably already know that. To Gad, Gad a troop, he shall troop, but a troop shall deceive him. To Asher, for Asher his food shall be rich, and his are the royal pleasures. To Naphtali, Naphtali is a nimble stag, he gives eloquent speech. To Yosef, Yosef a fruitful plant by a well, with the branches spread on the wall. But the master of arrows provoked and shot and pierced him. But he turned to his powerful bow, and the hands of his arms were quick, by the hands of the mighty of Yaakov, from whom is Yasharel's stone. You guys know I've talked about the stone of Scone right there. From the owl of your fathers, he will help you, and Shadiah, and again right there, the Shekinah stone, with Barakath of Shamayam above and Barakath below the dancing waters, with Barakath of the breast and tender affection. May the Barakath of your father strengthen with the bliss of the fertile vales. May the wealth of the ancient hills be heaped on the head of Yosef, more nobly crowned than his brothers. And this, it kind of gets into, I think, was it last week? I talked about the two messiahs and the son of Yosef, and how that's kind of been the evangelical church gets a lot of it right about the two roles of Messiah, the suffering servant and the conquering king, and how actually, even though Yahshua was Yehudish or Jewish, the first time when he was a suffering servant, he actually fulfilled the role of the son of Joseph. And we saw that last week, and that his return conquest of the earth was fulfilling Judah, the son of David. To Benjamin, a wolf, he shall eat plunder at daybreak, and at night he shall divide his spoil. Genesis 49. So there's one of the most beautiful prayers in the Bible is it gets me misty-eyed often when I read it. I will not get misty-eyed for you. Well, you never really know. You should maybe just hinge there on your television screen and look. You never know. But I find this absolutely beautiful when Yahshua prays for you and me, the high priestly prayer. And I think that's appropriate. And I believe that this is a prayer as he modeled things for us. I believe that this is what he still prays for us today. Yahshua spoke these things, and raising his eyes to heaven, he said, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, so that the Son may glorify you, just as you gave him authority over all mankind, so that to all whom you have given him, he may give eternal life. And this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true Allahayam, and Yahshua Messiah, whom you have sent. I glorified you on the earth by accomplishing the work which you have given me to do. And now you, Father, glorify me together with yourself, with the glory which I had with you before the world existed. I have revealed your name to the men whom you gave me out of the world. They were yours, and you gave them to me, and they have followed your word. Now they have come to know that everything which you have given me is from you. For the words which you gave me, I have given to them, and they received them and truly understood that I came forth from you, and they believe that you sent me. I ask on their behalf. I do not ask on behalf of the world, but on the behalf of those whom you have given me, because they are yours. And all things that are mine are yours, and yours are mine, and I have been glorified in them. I am no longer going to be in the world, and yet they themselves are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, keep them in your name, the name which you have given me, so that they may be one just as we are. And there's the akkad, right? That the oneness that he's praying for. And he's saying that, I and the Father are one, are akkad, and praying the same thing for us, that we would be one. And this is what we're seeing with Yosef and his brothers, that they become ikkad together. That this is like, Yah's like, okay, there was this, you guys really messed this up. It took me 20 years to fix this situation, to get it back. I'm finally getting you guys back. Now I can really start working with you guys. Of course, we know that all things are formed and put together for the greater good, right? Anyways, while I was with them, I was keeping them in your name, which you have given me, and I guarded them, and not one of them perished except the son of destruction, so that the scripture would be fulfilled. Isn't it interesting that technically Judas hasn't hung himself yet? Technically, I mean, he hasn't, right? He hasn't even betrayed him yet, but with the kiss on the cheek. And yet he already says, and not one of them perish except, so this is past tense, that the son of destruction has already perished. This is old research for you guys, but there's always that newbie out there. And of course, this is the unification, I believe. So this is where I think within a lot of the Torah groups, and they're, going to be futurists with Revelation, hasn't happened yet. And they're still waiting for that unification of Israel and Judah. Well, here's the thing, and respectfully to those groups. And when I first came into the Torah, I followed that research, this idea that we are still waiting on Ephraim and Manasseh to wake up and come back to Judah. Well, the thing is that then we're saying, well, the cross happened, the resurrection, and 2,000 years, nothing happened, right? 2,000 years, and we're still waiting for this to happen. And yet we see so much evidence all over the world that, in fact, it did already happen, that Judah and Joseph they were reunited again. Of course, Joseph through Manasseh and Ephraim, as the prophecies point out. So Joseph is once again reunited with his brothers. You see that there with the lion and the unicorn, the lion representing Judah. We saw that in the blessing of Jacob. And of course, I'm not going to take you through all the research on the unicorn being Manasseh and Ephraim. But the great thing about the jack, the British flag there, is that you see there's so much symbolism in there. I mean, you not only see the Tav, which is the Tav is in two ways, but really the X there would be, I guess, the Tav. That would be the ensign of Saint Andrew, the cross of Saint Andrew, which is one of the symbols of the Greek Orthodox Church. But you see the cross of St. George there as well, which the Templars later picked up and used. And they both blend them in there. And this is what we read in Isaiah 11:12. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcasts of Yasharel. So this is this Elijah figure who I have put out my research. It's out there for the jury. You guys can decide. But this idea that St. George was actually, we're told now he's a myth, but he actually fit I would say, perfect picture of a Elijah figure, if not Elijah himself, Phinehas, come back to, remember now Elijah didn't die, right? So Phinehas didn't die. St. George actually died like three or four times. I take you guys through that and show like what if that is for each of these guys. And he kept coming back and resurrecting, and eventually he went up to heaven. But he was the one to lead the charge against the Antichrist and unify. He was like the first to actually step up to the plate, and he assembled all of the righteous to come together and say, yeah, we're not putting up with this Antichrist. We're not doing this anymore. You can kill as many of us as you want, but we will not bend a knee to you or your idols. And that was the end. After that, it was over. After that, he never advanced in his ground anymore. Okay, so the oneness possible. Let's read a little bit more Philippians chapter 2. We read later on in the chapter. This is what Paul says in another one of his midrashes. Therefore, if there is any encouragement in Christ, if any consolation of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and compassion, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, maintaining the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. Now, how do we apply this to ourselves? I was talking with my group beforehand, and I'm not going to, it was a big 30-minute gushy spiel about where I've come from, some things I've had to repent of, and even how I deal with information, truther stuff and conspiratorial stuff. And I've completely changed my position on a lot of things. And I gave all those reasons why. I could probably just make a whole video on it. But at the end of it, it's like what I'm trying to convey to people is that because I believe that the Torah is true, okay, and that transgressing the Torah is the definition of sin. I don't want to tell anyone to do anything that would cause them to sin. This comes down to like the calendar debate, right? And I personally think that this is where I agree with Paul, where he's like, if it's a sin to you, then don't do it, right? It might be a sin to one and sin to others. So if you are convicted that the lunar Sabbath is a Sabbath, you need to keep it. Okay, don't use me as an excuse. Don't use anybody. Don't use your job. Don't use anything else as an excuse. If you are convicted of it, you need to keep it. I'm not convicted that it's the Sabbath, but you might be. But at the end of the day, we have all these difference of opinions on, what is a hoax, who died, what calendar we're supposed to keep, how we're supposed to pronounce names, how we're supposed to see the people in office, and who's being, what is a script, and stage act and how much of history is legitimate, all these different things, right? We all get together and we all have these different opinions. And this is where it really comes down to, like, when you go and stand before the court and you're having to give account for your life and you don't know yet if your name is still written in the book of life. It kind of has to be kind of an edgy moment, huh? And I don't think Yah's going to be like, he's sitting on that Bema seat. He's like, I was just looking through your records here, and this one time when you were baptized, I see here that you were triple dipped, and you actually went backwards instead of forwards. And when the triple dip is okay, but I noticed that you didn't say the names of the Trinity first. You said them with each dip, and then you like separated and you divided us. And also, you didn't get the names right. And oh, by the way, I have to tell you this, that, the Trinity isn't actually accurate. And you went through that modalist stage for a while, so that's some points against you. It's like, come on, like that's not the way it's going to go down at all. That like, if I'm putting all my chips on the table here, okay? If I am reading the Bible correctly, the entire point of why we came here to this earth is to conform to the image of our Heavenly Father, to be more like Him, right? To we read the Bible and we keep the Sabbath because we recognize that He is the Creator. He created time itself, and He rests on the Sabbath. And we model ourselves after what our Creator does. We can make all excuses we want about, I'm just resting in Jesus Monday through Sunday, man. Whatever that means. I had someone tell me that on Facebook today. It's like, man, you guys don't get it. I rest in Jesus every day. And I had that whole discussion with him. Like, he's your bread and water too, right? That's amazing. Like, like you don't have to sleep. You just work like 7 days a week. And you're somehow able to rest. You don't even eat and drink. That, like, teach me, breatharian. This is amazing, right? And then he went on to say that he doesn't need a tutor, that the Bible's in his tutor. I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I'm meeting someone who is unteachable, who is tutorless. Like, that's amazing. Like, you just go on, right? Look, at the end of the day, we are here to be obedient to the Father and conform to who He is. And we're going to be ignorant. We're He wants us to be like children, and we follow, and we're going to get things wrong. All right. But this is where, like, if we do not have love for each other, then all the stuff we've learned at whatever channels you go to with the unexpected cosmology, it's all pointless. All of it. This is what it comes down to. So let me just read this again. Therefore, if there is any encouragement in Messiah, if any consolation of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, right? And what is that fellowship of the Spirit, right? Unity and love. If any affection and compassion, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, right? So we can all disagree on, Sandy Hook and 9/11 and the shape of the earth, all these things, whether, the sons of Seth versus the sons of God theory, just go down the list, just come up with 500 things and go down the list, and we could disagree on them all. That's not what it's talking about by being in the same mind. Maintaining the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility consider one another as more important than yourselves. And I ask everyone, I went through this too, and I'm coming around on the other end. Like, you guys are seeing it in real time. I ask this of you guys, to treat Sunday Christians as better than you. Okay? You can turn your nose up at them and, I know more than you. I read the extra biblical books, and I read the Torah, and yeah, that's awesome, man. You know more than them. Like, you just hear them talk and you're just like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. They probably don't. But look at what our Messiah did and how He humbled Himself to the lowest possible form as a person, right? To total humility, to going to the cross, right? And that is what we are supposed to do for Christianity, for all these people who aren't there yet. And that was what the whole point of that video last Tuesday about Charlie Kirk and the Sabbath was about. A lot of people did not get it at all. They didn't get it, how we're celebrating the fact that millions of people all over the earth right now are now contemplating. 2 years ago, you would talk about the Sabbath, they would just laugh at you. And now they're taking it seriously and they're thinking, maybe I should keep the fourth commandment. I never thought of that before. You're not going to get any credit for it, just so you know. None of us will. But, that's fine. Charlie Kirk will get the credit. And instead of being like the Pharisees and standing there at the gate and saying, no, you can't enter the kingdom because you're a Sunday, blah, 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 fill in the blank. Don't be a Pharisee. These just bring them in, usher them in, and encourage them. Yes, keep that fourth commandment. Maybe you're not on my calendar. Maybe you're still keeping Sunday. All right. But just love them and encourage them and allow Yah to work on their hearts and circumcise them, because we can't do it. That's his whole message. It's like, you can't do it, guys. You can't circumcise them. You can't even circumcise yourself. All right. It has to be Yah that does it. Okay. That's my pulpit for the night. Good night, everybody. No, we still have plenty more to go through. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Messiah, Yahshua, who, as he already existed in the form of Elohim, did not consider equality with Elohim something to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a bondservant and being born in the likeness of men. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death on a cross. For this reason also Elohim highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name which is above every name. Before I tell you what that name is, that's the whole theme of the Ascension of Isaiah, guys, right? This is what Satan wants to do. He wants to lift himself up. He wants to ascend to the high place. And the reason why he never got it who Messiah was is because he couldn't think outside the box. He's thinking in his pride, right? And that's the thing, right? So if you want to go really high up the ladder in heaven, up the corporate ladder, up to level 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even beyond, I don't know. You got to humble yourself as low as you can possibly go. That's the way the cosmos, the unexpected cosmology, that's how it works. All right. And a lot of people are trying to lift themselves up, and I know more than you. Well, okay, well, maybe that person who knows less than you, you're going to be polishing their shoes, just so you know. So that the name of Yahshua, every knee will bow, of those who are in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and that every tongue will confess that Yahshua Messiah is Lord, to the glory of Elohim the Father. Philippians chapter 2, verses 2 through 11. Of course, Paul is quoting from Isaiah, so I want to point this out here. This is another, what I think is a great connection as to why I believe that Yahweh is the son of Elohim, that Yahweh is not the Father. Here's what Isaiah says. I am Yahweh, and there is no one else. I have not spoken in secret in some dark land. I did not say to the offspring of Yaakov, seek me in a wasteland. I, Yahweh, speak righteousness, declaring things that are right. Gather yourselves and come together, you survivors of the nations. They have no knowledge, who carry around their wooden idol and pray to an Elohim who cannot save. Declare and present your case. Indeed, let them consult together. Who has announced this long ago? Who has long since declared it? Is it not I, Yahweh? And there is no other Elohim besides me, a righteous Elohim and a savior. Now notice here he's calling himself the savior here, right? He's the savior of Israel, Yahweh. And this is one of the places where people who they fall away from Messiah because they go so deep down the rabbit hole of Torah, they go like full retarded Judaism, that they'll start looking at stuff like this. And they're not connecting the pieces that actually they're the same. There is none except me. Turn to me and be saved. Turn to who? I thought we were supposed to turn to his son Yahshua, but now we've got a little conflict of interest here. It's like, well, turn to Yahweh, turn to Yahshua, turn to me and be saved, all the ends of the earth. For I am Elohim, and there is no other. I have sworn by myself, the word has gone out from my mouth in righteousness and will not turn back, that to me every knee will bow, every tongue will swear allegiance. So this is what Paul is quoting from, except he just changes the name from Yahweh to Yahshua. And he does that on purpose. I think he knows what he's doing. I don't think it's by accident. I don't think he's trying to trick anybody or confuse anybody. I think he's just saying they're the same. That to me, every knee will bow, every tongue will swear allegiance. They will say of me, only in Yahweh is righteousness and strength. People will come to him, and all who were angry at him will be put to shame. In Yahweh, all the offspring of Israel will be justified and will boast. Isaiah 45. And this is why we were having this discussion earlier tonight that when John, there's two classifications or definitions for what the Antichrist is in the New Testament. Paul gives one, the man of lawlessness, but John gives the other when he says that those who deny that Messiah came in the flesh, being Yahshua, they are Antichrist. And I actually think he's not saying, John isn't saying like, hey, by the way, if you ever go to like the country of like Tanzania or Kenya, and they don't like know who Yahshua is, they're Antichrist. He's not saying that. I think he's specifically talking about the Jews, the very people who claim they worship Yahweh, and then Yahweh comes and they're like, yeah, you're not him. Like that's Antichrist in that context. All right, let's keep reading. Hope you guys are enjoying this tonight. I'm going to drink my cold coffee. So just sit by, stand by. I'm going to be having a hard time sleeping tonight. You guys should know I'm going to my buddy Paulie Hart's house tomorrow. So I get to go Shabbat with him, and it's a bit of a drive. I'll get up really early. He says he'll be waiting for me at 6 a.m. So I think he's going to be waiting a couple hours, but waiting by the window, taking a couple bathroom breaks. Yeah, looking forward to that. Okay, let's get back into this. Then Yosef was not able to restrain himself before the officers around him and cried out, every man go out from me. So not a man remained with him while Yosef made himself known to his brothers. According to some rabbinical sources, he was actually veiled this whole time, which actually would not have been uncommon because the idea is that, you know, you're not worthy enough to see the face of this ruler. You can come speak to him, but he's going to shroud himself. And that he basically here, he lifts his veil and reveals himself. Then Yosef revealed his language to his brothers, and the Egyptians heard, and it was reported to the house of Pharaoh. And Yosef said to his brothers, I am Yosef. Does my father yet live? But his brothers were not able to answer him, for they were terrified at the sight of him. And Yosef therefore said to his brothers, so you notice there how it's like all of a sudden they're terrified at the sight of him now. They weren't beforehand. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, ultimately, I don't know if I haven't read this in a text that I would say is authoritative, but it's an interesting thought. Come near me, Yosef says. So they approached when he said, I really am Yosef, your brother, whom you sold to go to Mitzrayim. And I know that with fury and rage in your eyes, you sold me. However, Elohim sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years, famine has encircled the land, and for 5 years more, there will not be plowing or harvest. On that account, Elohim has sent me before you to preserve to you a posterity in Ha'aratz, that would be the earth, and a secure future for your lives. Consequently, it was not you who sent me, but Elohim who appointed me as a father to Pharaoh and an administrator of all his house and a governor for all the land of Mitzrayim. Therefore, arise and go up to my father and say to him, your son Yosef says thus, Elohim has appointed me as administrator of all the Mitzrayim, so come down to me. Do not delay. You shall abide in the land of Goshen or Gashan and be near to me, you, your children, and your children's children, with all your sheep and your oxen and all that you have, and I will provide for you there. For there are 5 years of famine yet. For that cause, come down, yourself and your family, and all that you have, so that my eyes may see you and the eyes of my brother Benjamin or Benu Yamayam, and that my mouth may speak with you. You must also inform my father of all my power among the Mitzrayim, and all that you have seen, and cause your father to mount and come down here. Then he fell upon the necks of his brothers, and he wept, and Benu Yamayam wept upon his neck. He also kissed all his brothers and wept over them, and afterwards his brothers conversed with him, and a report was communicated to the palace of Pharaoh. Remember, the servants already left to tell him, saying, Joseph's brothers have come, and it was good in the eyes of Pharaoh. So because I was thinking about this, the way it's written, like it's almost ominous when when the servants go off and report to Pharaoh. It's almost like, because remember when I said that when Pharaoh made him second in command, he actually says, you're in command of all Egypt. Like, do whatever you want. I'm just letting you know, Joseph, that if you do anything to betray me, like, you're going to regret it. But I'm giving you just as long as it's in my interest, right? So I almost wonder here if these servants, they were kind of like spies in a way, like they were serving Joseph, but they had kind of communication with Pharaoh, and they kind of went and they like, hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but we think he doesn't have your best interest at heart here. But it turns in his favor, right? So anyways, Pharaoh is saying, Joseph's brothers have come, and it was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and of his ministers. And again, so, why would Moses write that right there, right? So, because it could have gone sour. Pharaoh therefore said to Joseph, say to your brothers thus, load up all of you from the city and go to the land of Canaan, and take your father and your families and come to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Mitzrayim, and you shall be fed on the fat of the land. You yourself also command this to be done. Take from the land of Mitzrayim for your little children and your women and your father, and bring them. Care nothing also for the abandonment of your goods, for the best of the land of Mitzrayim shall be yours. The sons of Yashruel accordingly did so, and Joseph gave them wagons from Pharaoh's arsenal and provided provisions for the journey. He also gave all of them a suit of clothes, but to Benu Yamayam he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of clothing. In addition, he sent to his father 10 male riding out. That five changes of clothing is more than I had when I was living in Europe this last year. I think I'm actually wearing the black sweater that you saw like in every video. I had like one sweater and one pair of pants. So I think Benjamin's doing pretty good on this journey back to Canaan. He's I have to assume he's got servants to carry his baggage, because I shouldn't have that. 5 pieces of clothing, it changes. In addition, he sent to his father 10 male riding asses, besides with bread and meat for his father on the way. Thus he sent off his brothers and said to them, do not quarrel on the road. They accordingly went out from Mitzrayim and ascended to the land of Canaan to Yaakov, their father, and reported to him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and he is also governor of all the land of Mitzrayim. Then his heart grew feeble, for he could not believe them. And then they related all that Joseph had said to them. But when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry himself, then the ruach of Yaakov, their father, revived, and Yashruel declared, it is enough. My son Joseph does live. I will go and see him before I die. Now, he makes this declaration that he's going to go see his son. Don't blame him. And it's interesting what he immediately does. Because remember the last time that he left Canaan. Now, his father, Yitzchak, as we saw, never left Canaan. He was born there. He died there. He was an ascending offering. But with Yaakov, the last, and it was Yah's will. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But he saw how it went south with the incident with the 2 sisters that he married, and with Laban and all that. And he knows he doesn't want to repeat this again. He's nice and comfy and safe where he's at. So Yashruel consequently marched and all that were with him, and he went to the well of the oath. So it's interesting. So he goes here first, and he's checking to make sure, is this your will at the well? And he offered offerings to Alahiah of his father Yitzchak. Then Alahiah appeared to Yashruel in a vision at night and declared, Yaakov, Yaakov. And he replied, I am here. So that's kind of cool. I mean, he answered him right away, right? When he answered, I am the Al-Alahiah of your father Yitzchak. Fear not. Now, I am of the present opinion. I am fine to be wrong about this. I didn't ask Pamela in advance. I have talked to her about this in the past with her translation, but I am of the opinion that this is not, don't, like, if those of you who have like rotten fruit, don't throw it, because then you hit your TV screen. You won't actually hit me. But this is not Yahuwah speaking here, that this is actually, this may be Allahayam, the Father, like the, ultimate God of the whole cosmos, speaking with him here, and not Yahshua, the Son. And when he answered, I am the Al-Alahiah of your father Yitzchak, fear not, go down to Mitzrayim, for you shall become a great nation there. Even I, shall go down with you into Mitzrayim, and I will support you. And Yosef shall place his hands upon your eyes. Now, again, this could be Yahuwah. I don't know, but just throwing that out there, that there does seem to be an exchange between the father and son all throughout the Torah, that like one will talk and then the other will talk. They're always working together. Yaakov afterwards arose from the well of the oath, and the sons of Yashua carried Yaakov their father and the children and women in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry them in. They also took their herds and the property they had purchased in the land of Canaan and went to Mitzrayim. Now, some of you guys out there think you have it hard, that you have to like open the door for your women, and admit it. Sometimes you forget, sometimes your wife has to remind you, remember when you used to open the door for me? And you're like, and you start opening the door. If I'm reading this right, the men actually carried their women to Egypt. I've carried my daughter and my sons in a backpack. I carried my daughter all across Europe, and that hurt. But they're carrying their women. If I'm reading this right, the women are not walking. It says they carried Yaakov, their father, and their children, and the women in wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry them in. Now, maybe it's fair. Maybe there's some donkeys pulling or something like that. I don't really know. They also took their herds and the property they had purchased in the land of Canaan and went to Mitzrayim. Yaakov and all his race with him, his sons and sons of his sons with him, his daughters and his daughters' sons, and all his race with him to Mitzrayim. All right. I was debating this week, and you can see the Paleo in front of you. For those of you who've purchased this, you can read. I'm going to read the English over here. For those of you who followed Pamela this week as she read through Paleo Joshua, it was an hour of amazing pronunciation on her part. But I'm just going to read the English over here. All right. So please forgive me for this. Those who went to Egypt. And these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt: Jacob and his sons, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. And the sons of Reuben were Hanok and Phalu and Hezron and Carmi. And the sons of Simeon were Yemuel and Yamin and Ohad and Yakin and Zohar and Shaul, the son of a Canaanitish woman. And the sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the sons of Yehuda were Er and Onan and Shelah and Pharez and Zerah. But Er and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of, they were quite the cautionary tale, weren't they? And the sons of Pharez were Hezron and Hamel. And the sons of Issachar were Tola and Fuva and Job. And not the Job. Wouldn't that be awesome if it was? And Shimron. And the sons of Zebulun were Sered and Elon and Yalil. These be the sons of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob in Padan Aram, with his daughter Dinah. All the souls of his sons and his daughters were 33. And the sons of Gad, Ziphion and Haggai, Shuni and Isban, Eri and Arodi and Erili. And the sons of Asher were Yimna and Ishua and Isui and Beriah and Sarah, their sister. And the sons of Beriah, Heber and Malchiel. These are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah his daughter, and these she bare unto Jacob, even 16 souls. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin. And unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him. And the sons of Benjamin were Bela and Becher and Ashbel, Gera and Naaman, Ehi and Rosh, Mupim and Hupim and Ard. How would you like to be the Mupim and Hupim brothers and Ard? These are the sons of Rachel, which were born to Yaakov. All the souls were 14. And the sons of Dan were Hushim. The sons of Naphtali were Hazel and Guni and Yezer and Shillem. These are the sons of Bilhah, which Laban gave unto Rachel, his daughter, and she bare these unto Yaakov. All the souls were 7. All the souls that came with Yaakov into Egypt, which came out of his loins, besides Yaakov's sons' wives, all the souls were 66. And the sons of Joseph, which were born him in Egypt, were 2 souls. All the souls of the house of Yaakov, which came into Egypt, were 70. And she puts here, you can read, all the Nephash who came with Yaakov unto Mitzrayim, coming out of his thigh, all the Nephash were 70. So there you see a interesting number 70 that lines up with the 70 nations, the 70 gods, the 70 apostles sent out, 72 by some translations. A lot of interesting connections there. Won't be covering those tonight. And Yahawada he had sent before him unto Joseph to find directions before him to Gashan. This is he had to find directions. Awesome. This is before GPS, right? Assumedly. And you have to wonder, is like Joseph gave him like directions in the stars or something like that. Turn right at the Big Dipper. And they came into the land of Gashan, and Joseph harnessed his chariot and went up to meet Yashriel his father. And he appeared unto him, and he fell down on his neck and wept upon his neck a long time. And Yashriel declared unto Joseph, I will die in one stroke, since I have seen your face, because you are yet alive. And Joseph declared unto his brothers and unto the house of his father, I will go up and speak unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, my brothers and the house of my father, who were in the land of Canaan, have come in unto me. And the men are shepherds, for they have been men of livestock, and their flock and their herds, and they have brought all which they possess. And it shall exist, when Pharaoh calls out to you and asks your occupation, that you will declare, your slaves have been men of livestock from our youth, even to this time, in order that you may exist in the land of Gashan, for shepherds are an abomination unto Mitzrayim. Okay, so just wanted to throw this out at you, that this is something you do read in the Targum here, which is an awesome little gem in the same passage we just read, that regarding the children of Asher, you have Yimnah, Yishva, Yeshvi, Beriah, and Sirach, their sister, who was carried away while alive into the Garden of Eden. This would be terrestrial paradise, what I have called the hidden wilderness. So I do want to rename the book and rebrand it The Blessed Land, because I think more people understand what that is. Terrestrial paradise. It's on the earth today, because she had announced to Yaakov that Joseph still lived. So, and it's just like this little thing they put in there, but you see this all throughout scripture, extra biblical books, that this isn't just something that happened to Enoch and Elijah, that like you can live a life and you can be rewarded and taken there without dying. It has happened all throughout history. And I wouldn't be, I seriously, I would not be surprised if it still happened. Unfortunately, I was lied to, and a lot of us were lied to, that like, you are just a dung heap. You're a pile of, rancid, cloth, whatever, poopy toilet paper. You can never amount to anything. And, this is what the Protestant church unfortunately teaches. And they keep you in these sins. In this once saved, always saved paradigm, and it's a shame, but I'm not upset over this. Okay, I want to show you this, and I know that we read Sodom and Gomorrah several weeks ago, but I don't think I've ever really talked about the extent of this. Okay, so right here, so these are each of the different cities. Okay, so there's Gomorrah, there's Sodom down there, there's Zoar, and you could see way up here. So this would have been the plain, the very lush land that they said was kind of like Eden. It was very lush. But here's Jerusalem right here. Okay, we know Jerusalem was a city then. It wasn't named that, but this is where Melchizedek was. Here's Bethlehem right here, but here's Hebron where Abraham was. So imagine how big, because I don't think we think about it like a city in the distance, but even if you were in Jerusalem, you would see the smoke of this furnace rising north of you. You would see it east of you and south of you. It would be probably raining down like ash. I mean, it would have been an incredible thing to see when Abraham woke up. You would have heard this blast. You would have probably heard it, to Babylon. I mean, it would have just been just this huge earthquake type of blast that had to have happened. And so, anyways, Hebron's right there. And I kind of want to show you this. And of course, interestingly enough, right where they put Sodom is exactly where the statue of Lot's wife can be found to this day. The reason I'm showing you this, though, is that, okay, so here is, we see that Yaakov goes to Beersheba. And we don't really know where he was when he was found. It is thought that he was around Hebron area. It kind of makes sense, considering like the in Jasher, it kind of pits it there too with the cave where they were going to whatever. It seems to be right there. And so he goes. So it is kind of on the way to Egypt, but he stops right here in Beersheba on the way to Egypt. This is Beersheba today, the ruins of it. It's called Tel Beersheba. Now, this city, supposedly, I think it's a Bronze Age city, but I think it would have existed after this incident. I think. I was trying to get the dates down on it. I don't know if this city actually existed yet. But here's some of the things we know about Beersheba. Beersheba is mentioned 33 times in the Hebrew Bible. There is a fun number for you right there. I love that number, 33. So it's just fun times. A lot you can do with that number. Isn't it neat? 33. It is often used when describing the borders of the land of Israel from Dan to Beersheba. And so you can see this right here that, this kind of goes into more Egypt territory over there. Abraham, we know that Abraham dwelt at Beersheba in Genesis 22. We know that Abraham and Abimelech entered a covenant at Beersheba in Genesis 21. We know that Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba in Genesis 21. We know that Yahweh spoke to both Isaac and Jacob, Abraham's son and grandson, respectively, of Beersheba. Now, that may be inaccurate. I put Yahweh there, but like I said, it doesn't specify him in 46:1. And I guess I would have to go back to Genesis 26 and look at that again. I wish I was prepared for that now that I'm thinking about it live. Abraham's well was seized by Abimelech's men there in Genesis 21. A lot happened there in Genesis 21 territory. And then we see that a well was dug by Yitzchak's servants in Genesis 26. And I've obviously covered this in the Torah portions. Now, this here apparently is supposed to be Abraham's well at Beersheba. The source is Wikipedia. But oddly enough, if you go to another Wikipedia page, they show Isaac's well at Beersheba. And I was like, wait a second. I was looking at the doors in the background. I went up and I'm like, isn't that the same doors in the same palm tree? I'm like, I went back. I was like, wait a second here. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. They do say that there are two wells at Beersheba, and they claim to be Isaac's and Abraham's wells, which is kind of a cool thought. And there's only two of them there. But apparently Wikipedia is confused. They don't know whether this is Isaac's or Abraham's. All right, let's keep reading. 47. I have a lot of commentary at the end I need to get to. Jacob's family settles down to dwell in Goshen. Hope you guys are enjoying this tonight. And Yosef, he came and told Pharaoh and declared, my father and my brothers and their livestock and all they possess are come out of the land of Canaan. And behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And from the whole of his brothers, he took 5 men and set them before the face of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh spoke unto his brothers, what is your occupation? And they declared unto Pharaoh, Your slaves are shepherds of small cattle, both we and our fathers. And they said unto Pharaoh, it's interesting, right? Because Joseph has already warned them that like the lowliest profession, it's like an abomination to be a shepherd. I honestly, I still don't understand that. I've heard that my whole life. It's in scripture. I don't know why I haven't, read the Egyptian gossip tabloids, from like the 16th century BC. Oh, can you believe it? These Hebrew shepherds moved. I don't know what the deal is on that. Somebody out there probably knows, but it's that I think that this plays into my point is I think this plays into the theme of the humbling themselves. Like this probably had to hurt a little bit. Judah has an ego, right? Maybe he's lost it by this point, but he had one. I think he had one. I think he's lost it. And I think that's what Joseph is saying. Like, look, you've humbled yourself in front of me, but now you have to go in front of Pharaoh. And I know this is going to hurt Judah, but you need to tell him you're a shepherd, which he was. And this is they do. And of course, we see how Pharaoh rewards them in the last shall be first scenario. As strangers in the land are we come, for we have no pasture for our small cattle, for the famine is grievous in the land of Canaan. Now we beseech you, allow your slaves to settle down to dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, your father and your brothers have come unto you. The land of Mitzrayim is before your face. Make them to dwell in the best part of the land. Your father and your brothers allow them to settle down to dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know among them any men of skill, appoint them as overseers for my own livestock. And Joseph brought in Yaakov his father and caused him to stand up before the face of Pharaoh. And Yaakov he did Barak Pharaoh. And Pharaoh spoke unto Yaakov, how many years have you existed? Man, Yaakov, that guy just goes around blessing people. I mean, he blesses Pharaoh, right? He blesses Ephraim and Manasseh, and we'll see that next week. And then it's like he gets to Dan, and he'll be like, you're going to be a viper in the path, and like people on horses are going to fling back because he's like, oh, you even bless Pharaoh, man. Give me a blessing, Dad. And Pharaoh spoke unto Yaakov, how many years have you existed? When Yaakov replied unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojourning have been 130 years. Few and evil have been the years of the days of my existence, and they have not reached the days of the years of my fathers existed in the days of their sojourning. That's not how I word that. I guess, maybe Moses hit the worst parts of his life. Maybe he had a lot of just kind of boring, nice years, because it seemed like he had those 20, years of literally, it's called Jacob's trouble. And then his sons went on a war path, and his daughter, with that whole incident. But apparently he's looking back at his life. He's like, yeah, over the last 100 years, it had its down times, but overall I can't complain. Then Yaakov, he did Barak Pharaoh and retired from the presence of Pharaoh. And Joseph afterwards settled his father and his brothers and gave them possession in the land of Mitzrayim, in the best district in the country of Ramses, as he was commanded. So there, does the KJV say Ramses? Oh yeah, it does. In the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And so we see that the land of Ramses is the land of Goshen, and I'll be showing you that. Joseph also provided for his father and his brothers and all their families according to their offspring. Bread failed in all the country, for the famine was very grievous. And the land of Mitzrayim and the land of Canaan fainted before the famine. Therefore, Joseph gathered up all the money he found in the land of Mitzrayim and in the land of Canaan, and all the Mitzrayim came to Joseph for the corn they bought. And Joseph brought the money to the treasury of Pharaoh. Thus, he collected the money from the land of Mitzrayim and the land of Canaan. Then all the Mitzrayim came to Joseph to say, provide bread for us, that we may not die before you, for our silver is exhausted. And Joseph, however, answered them, bring your cattle, and I will sell you it for your cattle instead of for silver. Consequently, they brought their cattle to Joseph, and he gave them bread for horses and cattle and sheep. For herd of oxen and asses, he supplied them with bread in exchange for all their cattle that year. Ouch. It's quite the trade there. But that year ended, so they came to him in the next year and said to him, we have kept back nothing from Adonijah. We have nothing left except our bodies and our land. Why should we ourselves die before your eyes? But to yourself, our land but to yourself our land for bread, and we and our land will be slaves unto Pharaoh. Thus the Mitzrayim sold everyone his farm, for the famine was cruel upon them, and the land became Pharaoh's. But he transferred the people upon it to fresh villages, from one extremity of Mitzrayim to the other extremity of it, except he did not buy the lands of the priesthood, for he had protected the priesthood by laws from Pharaoh, and they were fed with rations provided for them. Therefore, he did not buy their land. Then Joseph proclaimed unto the nation, You see, I have bought you today and your land for Pharaoh. I will supply seed to you, and you can sow the land. But of its produce you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh, and 4/5 shall be for yourself, to sow your fields and to feed you, along with those your employ, and as food for your offspring. They thereupon replied, Our lives have found favor in the sight of my Adon, and we will be slaves of Pharaoh. So Joseph made it an ordinance to this day that the land of Mitzrayim was Pharaoh's for the 5th tax, except the lands of the priesthood, which were not to become Pharaoh's. And I'm assuming there that he's not talking just about the Levites, right? Now, the whole book of Jasher talks about how the Hebrews were tricked and they fell for it and went into slavery, but the Levites did not, interestingly enough. But it's interesting here to see Joseph looking at for the priest. I'm assuming this refers to the pagan priests too. Joseph also settled Yasharel in the land of Mitzrayim. Let me just stop there. I want you guys to think about this, right? Maybe this is a homework assignment. Maybe one of you can write me about this. Give me your findings. If he's, because we're seeing here, this is the story of how Pharaoh gets the land of Egypt, right? The government is literally buying up the land. And so these are the normal Egyptians here that are giving up their animals and their land out of desperation. I would assume that they could have stored up food too. I don't think the government was stopping them from doing that. Maybe they just didn't believe this Joseph guy. Like, man, what's up with this dude? We have to keep giving money for this famine. And they're like, oh, but it's too late, right? Maybe it's something like that. That there were probably, I don't think this was everybody. There probably were some very wise people in Mitzrayim. We know Job was there eventually. But I want you guys to think about this. So if these are pagan priests and Joseph is telling Pharaoh that the land of the lands of the priesthood were for the priest. Keep in mind, he married a priest of On's daughter. I want you guys to think about that and see how the Torah would apply to our culture today. And I'm not even talking about just people of the Torah, right? Or the Levites. Something to think about. Somebody write me and go like, no, I'm sorry. He's just talking about the Levites right there. Joseph also settled Yasharel in the land of Mitzrayim. See, clearly he's talking about them separately now in the district of Goshen, and they possessed there and flourished and increased greatly. All right. Was that the end of that might be the end of the Torah portions reading? I'm not sure. We'll find out. So I showed you we'll be getting into this when we get into Exodus, the Exodus path. You can see the way of Horus up there. It's also known as the way of the sea. But in the times of the Exodus, it was, as far as I know, it was known as the way of Horus. So it's interesting that Yahweh is like, no, you're not going that way. And we know that some of the Israelites did escape, fight their way free before Moses freed them. And it was a disaster for them there. The Philistines slaughtered them and they went a different path. So they went Yah's path, which was through the wilderness. But nevertheless, you can see Goshen over here. It's kind of on the outskirts of Egypt. So maybe it's not the most desired real estate, even though Pharaoh said it was, top-notch stuff. It looks green to me. All right, so let's talk about the brothers' reunion. We're going to get back into the commentary on this. The brothers' reunion with Joseph, foreshadowing of Yahshua. And this is what we read, and this is where it gets really good, guys. Thank you for hanging in there. Ezekiel 37. The word of Yahweh came again to me, saying, this is Ezekiel talking, now you son of man, take for yourself one stick and write on it for Yehuda and for the sons of Israel, his companions. Then take another stick and write on it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel, his companions. You guys already can see where we're going with this. Then put them together for yourself, one to another, into one stick, so that they may become one in your hand. See, isn't this amazing? See, this is how it works, guys. When you read the Torah and then you read the rest of the Bible, and it's like, oh, it's just referring to the Torah. I get it. It's Sunday school stories. Then put them together for yourself, one to another, into one stick, so that they may become one in your hand. And when the sons of your people speak to you, saying, will you not declare to us what you mean by these? Say to them, this is what Yahweh Elohim says. Behold, I am going to take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his companions, and I will put them with it, with the stick of Yehuda, and make them one stick, and they will be one in my hand. I didn't highlight there in my hand, one in my hand, but we're going to end with that line tonight. So keep that in mind. Their sticks on which you write will be in your hand before their eyes, and say to them, this is what Yahweh Elohim says. Behold, I am going to take the sons of Yasharel from among the nations where they have gone, and I will gather them from every side and bring them into their own land. Amazingly, I still see like people like in the Torah movement, and they're like, no. Because these are like Jewish people are trying to like infiltrate it, and they're like, you guys are goyim, you're not Israel, and like I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? Like it says right here, like this is like we are Israel, we are grafted in, and we are being brought in, and you don't want us to be unified, but that's your problem, dude. I'll speak to the others who are okay to be involved in Yah's divine plan for humanity. You can deny it all you want. I'm going to take the sons of Yasher from among the nations where they have gone, and I will gather them from every side and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land on the mountains of Yasharel, and one king will be king for all of them. And they will no longer be two nations and no longer be divided into two kingdoms. They will no longer defile themselves with their idols or with their detestable things or with any of their offenses, but I will rescue them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and will cleanse them, and they will be my people, and I will be their Elohim. And my servant David will be king over them, and they will all have one shepherd, and they will walk in my ordinances and keep my statutes and follow them. Now, this is one of those passages, like there's like 4 in the Bible where people are like, yeah, sorry, Yahshua is not the Messiah. It says right here, it's David. Now, I have a couple thoughts on this. Everyone knows that, Yahshua was a son of David, right? And this is where, but this is where I go into my 2 Messiah theory. There's the son of Joseph, the son of David, and Christianity ultimately gets it right, even if they have the lost knowledge of the son of Joseph. But so this is the conquering one now. But the thing is, though, if during the millennial kingdom, if David, like the actual David, was set up to rule, like cool, awesome. I mean, he would still be under authority of Yahshua, but I could totally see a scenario where he's like, all right, David, sit in your throne, rule. I could totally see that. I have no problems with that. But let's not, lose sight of the fact here that they will all have one shepherd, and they will. So, of course, we're seeing Israel and Judah united, not under 2 shepherds, but one. And they will walk in my ordinances and keep my statutes and follow them. What are that? Those are the commands of 6:13. So that's a requirement to be in the flock that you want to be in, isn't it? There's no like goyim here. There's like no third option. Yeah. I mean, if there was I don't want to be in the other flock. I'm just letting you know, like that doesn't sound like the place to be. They will live on the land that I gave to my servant Jacob, in which your fathers lived, and they will live on it, they and their sons sons forever. And my servant David will be their leader forever. And I will make a covenant of peace with them. It will be an everlasting covenant with them. And I will place, is this like the new covenant? Or like what kind of covenant are we talking about here? I mean, this could be we will be talking about that tonight. It could be the covenant at the Last Supper, or maybe it's just a new covenant. I don't know. I figure there's be covenants all throughout history, right? And I will place them and multiply them and set my sanctuary in their midst forever. Nevertheless, this new covenant you see right here, the Torah is involved in it. My dwelling place also will be among them, and I will be their Elohim, and they will be my people. And the nations will know that I am, wait for it, Yahweh, who sanctifies Israel. It doesn't say Yahshua there, it says Yahweh. Tomato, tomato. When my sanctuary is in their midst forever, Ezekiel 37. And then this next one is Zechariah 12. How fun. When's the last time I read from Zechariah for you guys? On that day, I will make the clans of Yehuda like a fire pot among pieces of wood and a flaming torch among sheaves, so they will consume on the right and on the left all the surrounding peoples, while the inhabitants of Jerusalem again live on their own sites in Jerusalem. Yehuda also will save the tents of Yehuda first, so that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem will not be greater than Yehuda. On that day, Yahweh will protect the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And the one who is feeble among them on that day will be like David, and the house of David will be like Elohim, like the angel of Yahweh before them. And on that day, I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. This is another millennial kingdom, leading into millennial kingdom passage. The war of the sons of light against the sons of darkness. And I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and pleading, so that they will look at me whom they have pierced. Let me slow down. Okay, so let's take it back into Joseph territory. I'm sorry, I was getting a little excited there about the millennial kingdom. You know how that goes. Let's just slow our roll. Let's back up. Joseph is now in front of his brothers, and they don't know who he is. Okay, so this is what's being rehearsed. They will look at me whom they pierced. Now, in this case, they were going to kill Joseph. They threw him in a pit. So they will look at me whom they threw into a pit, and they will mourn for him like one mourning for an only son, and they will weep bitterly over him like the bitter weeping over a firstborn. On that day, the mourning in Jerusalem will be great, like the mourning of Hadadrimmon on the plain of Megiddo. The land will mourn every family by itself, the family of the house of David by itself and their wives by themselves, the family of the house of Nathan by itself and their wives by themselves, the family of the house of Levi by itself and their wives by themselves, the family of the Shimeites by itself and their wives by themselves, all the families that are left, every family by itself and their wives by themselves. Zechariah 12. So there's obviously talking about this time when this unification happens with Israel and Judah, and David, in this case, I believe Yahshua, son of David, he steps in and the reconciliation happens, right? He's bringing them together, and his desire is to unify again with Judah, who did crucify him. And, maybe this hasn't happened in history. My position, I think this has. And I showed you some of the, just a glimpse of the evidence tonight for that at least historically, these nations believed it happened. So there's that. I mean, we could say it didn't happen, but people in the past believed it happened. And I've seen enough of that evidence. And there was a time in history when Judah mourned and wept because they realized what they did. And there he was. There was a Messiah, and he came to save them. John 19, this scene, I'll go over this really quickly. This is when they're preparing the body. Joseph of Arimathea is about to show up. And it's interesting that John says this. He quotes from two prophecies. Not a bone of him shall be broken. And that's 100% legit. He was supposed to be the Passover lamb. And again, another scripture says, they will look at him whom they pierced. So John is here sourcing Zechariah 12. But it's kind of odd because is he saying that I think he's giving the first part of that prophecy. He's not giving the end of it, because they clearly did crucify him and they didn't know what they were doing necessarily, because they were working from top-down management. Satan botched that. He didn't have a clue either. He led that Trojan horse down the Sheol. And so this is the first part of it. I think that's what John is doing there, which is kind of cool. Revelation 1:7 says this: behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him. It says all the tribes of the earth. Notice how it describes this in Zechariah 12. It says all the families that are left. which is speaking of a lot of death. And when we get to these passages in Second Esdras and others, it's like, yeah, it's a total massacre of humanity. And of course, interestingly enough, we do find that in the 500s, like there was basically nobody left, and all genealogies spring from very few people that survived some sort of big apocalyptic event in the 500s. Okay, this is what it says in Proverbs 19. And this is referring to the plans of the brothers versus the plans of Yahweh. Take this to comfort that we can scheme all we want, but in the end, the one thing, if you do one thing right in life, it is to bow to the King of Kings in submission to him, because he's going to have his way either way. So it's better just to let him have his way, because there's no reason to fight against it or come up with any plans that don't happen to be his. It says many plans are in a person's heart. That is true. I mean, I have many plans. I'll be talking to you more about that and how I'm realizing those plans are not Yah's plans, and that he has a plan, and I want to fall in line with that. And I believe that it's the publication of the Paleo Hebrew, just, Many plans are in a person's heart, but the advice of Yahweh will stand. There are, of course, two messiahs talked about in the book of the Illuminators. I wish I mentioned this last week. I'll go ahead and cover this now. It says, now, many people believe there would be two kinds of deliverers. And a man named Yosef Barabbas, this is, I believe, the same as Barabbas. It's interesting. His name is either Yeshua or Jesus Barabbas. But here's Yosef Barabbas too, right? So just a lot of connection with Yosef and Yahshua. But Barabbas, this guy had many followers. Yahshua met him at a house in Bethel, and he goes up to Barabbas. I love the scene. And he says, why do you declare things which stir up the people? To which the other replied, what concerns it of yours? I could totally see that happening today. And so remember this, the next time somebody tells you what concern is it of yours, this is how Yahshua responded. He answered him after this manner. Several men were sitting in a boat, and one began boring a hole beneath the seat. And seeing that, his companion said, what are you doing here? And he answered, what concern is it of yours what I do beneath my own seats? And they replied, surely it is our affair when what you do will swamp the boat, and we will all be thrown into the water. And of course, I don't know, who knows if Barabbas even remembered this story when he stood up there and he was the Azazel goat that was released into the wilderness, and all sin was put upon him and the people, of course. Book of the Illuminators 10:16-17. Here is one more from the Book of the Illuminators. This happens to be the woman at the well. And so he's talking with her. And when the disciples of Talmudim returned, their reply puzzled Yochanan, that'd be John, for they reported Yahshua as saying, I am not, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I had that wrong. No, this is actually John in prison. I don't know why I was thinking that. So John is in prison, right? So the disciples of John go to him and say that they report that Yahshua stated, I am not he whom you expected, or the deliverer of these people, but the deliverer of all men. Nevertheless, if only another will change the hearts of the people, I shall not be found wanting. And of course, Yochanan received wisdom and knew he had not erred. He was actually really doubting that Yahshua was the Messiah. And at that point, he knew he had chosen the right one. And he understands that that Yahshua is bringing all the sheep into one flock, right? He's looking at the Gentiles, and he wants to bring Israel back to Judah. And this is a statement he says to the Canaanite woman. Or he answered and said, according to her, she's shouting, and I don't need to go through this whole story. It's a fun little Sunday school story. We don't need to cover it. He says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Is that interesting? So there's your two messiahs right there. He's Messiah to Judah, but Israel, and he's putting the two sticks into one, as Ezekiel is to do. Let's talk about the cup of forgiveness, or I call it the silver cup of forgiveness. I really should just call it the cup of forgiveness. So we see silver in the price of a servant in Genesis 37:28, Leviticus 27:3-7, which I'll quote from, Zechariah 11, Matthew 26, 27, and chapter 27. But in Leviticus 27, it says this. Again, Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the sons of Yashruel and say to them, when someone makes an explicit vow, he shall be valued according to your assessment of persons belonging to Yahweh. And he says down here, verse 5, if the person is from 5 years even to 20 years old, then your assessment for a male shall be 20 shekels. Now, Joseph was that age range. Okay, so that's interesting. He was under 20 when he was sold. And let's see what it says here in Genesis 37. So once again, 20 shekels. All right, silver. Bereshith 37:28 says, then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. Now, up here, though, the Torah, of course, is talking about voluntary servitude, right? Which is completely different. Joseph was not volunteering for this. We don't need to go through all that again. We see another one here in Zechariah 11. So let me read up here again. If it's from, let's see, where is it? I don't know. That's okay. We see another example of it here, but I don't need to read Zechariah 11. All right, in Genesis 44:12, we read that afterwards he commanded his stewards, saying, this was last week's story, as you recall, he's setting up a kind of a trap for the brothers. Fill the loads of these men with food as much as they are able to carry, and put the money of each on the top of the carts, and my cup, the cup of silver, place at the top of the load of the youngest with the money for his corn. So they did as Joseph ordered, and you know how that story ends. So Mark 14 says this, and as they were eating, he took bread, and after blessing it, broke it and gave it to them and said, take this, my body. And he took, take this, my body. And he took a cup. And when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank of it. And he said to them, this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. Now, I've stated before that this is the new covenant. People will argue until their cows come home whether it's a new covenant or renewed covenant. I told you in the past I could care. I shouldn't say I could care less, because I care about, the mysteries of the Bible and discovering this stuff. But it doesn't matter either way to me. When I say I could care less, that's what I mean. It doesn't matter either way. Because as I have shown, there is not a single, like the covenants in the Bible are always based on the last covenant. And the covenants keep expanding their vision, starting from being expelled from Eden, going to Noah, going to Abraham, going to up through Moses, going to David, going up to Joshua. Every single one is based on the one that came before it. They did not eradicate or do away with any of the old covenants. They just built upon it. And this is why the new covenant is indeed the better covenant that he offered. And he offered it with the cup. This is the cup, I will remind you, that brought about reconciliation with Joseph and his brothers, if you're not seeing that connection right there. Matthew 26 says this, and he took a cup. And when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. This is the reconciliation, right? It's the same thing that brought him to Joseph, and Joseph is the Messiah type, and he's bringing all the brothers together. And Joshua is going for the lost sheep of Israel, bringing the two sticks together, and he's doing it with the cup, which is his blood, the binds us all together. 1 Corinthians 11:23-25 says, for I received from Yahuwah what I also delivered to you, that Yahuwah, Yahshua, on the night when he was, is that a glitch or what? I don't know. Let you guys decide with your groups tomorrow. You go to your Sabbath groups. That Yahuwah, Yahshua, on the night when he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, he also took the cup after supper, saying, "This cup is the new/renewed." I'm just going to say new covenant. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. 1 Corinthians 11. All right, we're going to end on this section tonight, the hand of God. I told you we're going to end on this. Ezekiel 37. Remember the two stick story, Judah and Israel. And we read in 37:17, then put these two sticks together for yourself, one to another, into one stick, so that it may become one in your hands. And I don't think that's a, in the cross-reference game, I don't think that's a mistake. Let's read about hands for a moment. Psalms 95:5 says, "The sea is his, for it was he who made it, and his hands formed the dry land." All right, so we're seeing here that in Ezekiel's hand, the two sticks become one. We're seeing that the dry land was formed by a hand. Hebrews 1:10. I could probably even read about the firmament. Wish I would have. Regrets in life, right? Hebrews 1:10. You, Lord, or I guess I could say Adonai, or Yahweh, even really. You, Yahweh, in the beginning laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of your hands. Now we see the heavens, we see the earth, all right? Got a theme going here. You have a strong arm. Your hand is mighty. Your right hand is exalted. There's, of course, a lot of theories out there that the right hand of Yahweh is Yahshua. And this would be, coming from the camp, I guess, of Yahshua as the son of Yahweh. Nevertheless, there's something to be said about the right hand. Your right hand is exalted. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Mercy and truth go before you. Psalm 89:13. I love the combinations. It's giving me chills. Mercy and truth. Because, man, when we are searching for the truth, we need mercy. Like, we need a merciful, and we need to show mercy. I talked about that whole rant I did earlier tonight. Like, guys, just let's please show mercy. Like, if you have the truth, or at least you think you have the truth, I've stopped thinking that about some things because I've, changed my opinion on the truth so much. My opinion has never changed on the Bible. The Bible is true, but my understanding of it has changed. So, instead of beating someone on the head of something that I no longer believe, you know what I'm saying? You burn bridges. And it's like, why did I burn that bridge? Let's show mercy. All right. Mercy. Let's conform to the image of Allah Hayam, because we know that he is a merciful, merciful God. Mercy and truth go before you. I'm so glad mercy goes before him, man, that it doesn't follow after him. Exodus. So before you even see him, you receive his mercy. Exodus 13:3. And Moshe said to the people, remember this day in which you departed from Mitzrayim, from the house of slavery, for by a powerful hand, Yahweh brought you out from this place. That's weird. There's Luke sitting there by his lonesome self. Okay, well, we'll just leave Luke out of this, I guess. He's just going to sit in the dunce chair there. I'm sorry. Well, let's look at what Leviticus 1:4 says. This is speaking about the Levite priest. And this is really, really interesting because I've been, okay, we'll talk about that later, another time, about the laying on of hands. But in the power and laying on of hands, the lost arts of laying on of hands. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering so that it may be acceptable for him to make atonement on his behalf. Leviticus 1:4. Kind of interesting there. This is, of course, the priest with the sacrifices, Acts 13:3. Then when they had fasted, prayed, and laid their hands on them, this is referring to Barnabas and Shaul or Paul, they then sent them on their way. So remember this as a congregation. If you ever do something like this and you're going to lay hands on someone, send them on their way, it might be a good idea to fast first. Give it a few days, fast. Mark 8:25. Oh, I love this story. And they came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a man who was blind to Joshua and begged him to touch him. Just begged him, just touch the guy. And taking the man who was blind by the hand, he brought him out of the village. And after spitting in his eyes and laying his hands on him, he asked him, "Do you see anything?" And he looked up and said, "I see people, for I see them like trees walking around." Now, this passage always confused me, and then finally, in college, I read J.R.R. Tolkien, and of course, coincidentally, at the same time, the Lord of the Rings came out, and I'm like, "Oh, Ince, I get it." He saw a tree beard walking by. There they are in the Bible, right there. If you ever wondered where all the Entwives went. And then again, he laid his hands on his eyes, and he looked intently and was restored and began to see everything clearly. And he sent him to his home, saying, "Do not even enter the village." Mark 8:25. Luke 4:40 says, "Now when the sun was setting, all those who had any who were sick with various diseases brought them to him, and he was laying his hands on each one of them and healing them." Definite connection here between the laying of hands and, it this is one of those things. I mean, I'm learning later in life, and I don't know if she's listening, but like Ancient Paths, we brought her on last Sunday to give a talk, and I hope at least once a month that she'll come by and give another talk, and maybe she'll cover the idea of the lost art of laying hands. And this isn't just something that like Messiah did and be like, "Yeah, I got this down and you're not going to ever do this." Just mimic laying on of hands, but there's actually nothing to the laying of hands. It just it looks neat for the camera, right? It's like, no, there's actually something literally about the laying of hands. Acts 19:11 says this: God was performing extraordinary miracles by the hands of Paul, so that handkerchiefs or aprons were even carried from his body to the sick, and the diseases left them and the evil spirits went out. I know that I'm sorry to do that. That probably triggered a few of you guys. So, some of the anti-Paulers out there, you're like, ugh. In Acts 19:6. And when Paul had laid hands upon them, see, I didn't give you warning again. Well, I guess I did if you know Acts 19, but so Paul is still going around. He's, maybe this is what he meant, follow me as I follow Messiah. People like, I will not follow Paul. I will just follow Messiah. But he was doing what Messiah was doing, obviously. He was going around. Paul had laid hands upon them. The Holy Spirit came on them, and they began speaking with tongues and prophesying. There were about 12 men in all, Acts 19:6. A promise to Zion, Isaiah 49:16. But Zion said, "Yahweh has abandoned me, and Yahweh has forgotten me. Can a woman forget her nursing child and have no compassion on the son of her womb? Even these may forget, but I will not forget you." Okay, well, let's just finish this. "Behold, I have inscribed you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me." Like, this is a beautiful passage, right? If you're looking at like between a man and a lover. And personally, there are studies out here on this. Yes, scientific, the big S word, scientific studies, psychological studies you can look at that in breakup scenarios, wait for it, women recover faster than men. Women are actually able to recover and move on in relationship. Like, I'm done with that guy. I'm moving on to the next guy. And men, like, they don't. They really like, this is not how they're perceived in society and the media, but actually studies show that men have a harder time letting go of their love. They even if they push it down subconsciously, it's there. And I believe that this is the story that is given in the Bible, like on earth as it is in heaven, right? And we're like, men are modeled after our Father in heaven, women are modeled after their mother in heaven. And it's the same thing with Yahweh and Israel, that he had a really difficult time giving them up. Like, he could not give them up, even though they forgot about him By the time he handed them a bill of divorce, they were all like, I'm over you, dude. I've moved on to other gods. It's all cool. Oh, divorce. Okay, that's cool. I've already moved on. And he's like, I can't forget you. I love you too much. You're on my mind all the time. And he's like, you don't understand. I've inscribed you on the palms of my very hands. Your walls are continually before me. Isaiah 49:16, beautiful passage. Luke 24:37. Now, while they were telling these things, Joshua himself suddenly stood in their midst and said to them, Shalom be to you. But they were startled and frightened and thought they were looking at a spirit. And he said to them, why are you frightened, and why are your doubts arising in your hearts? See my hands and my feet, that is I myself. Touch me and see. Because the spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you plainly see I have. I have to, maybe I've watched a little bit too much Babylon Bee, but by the way, the guy who does the Babylon Bee, I totally saw him a year ago. We were down at a natural spring in Florida. It was a Sabbath, and we're just sitting there Shabbating, my family. And I looked over, I told my wife, I'm like, dude, he was there with his wife, the guy he does all the Babylon Bee stuff. I'm like, that's him. And we were actually pretty close to their headquarters. Because I could see him going in, like the actor Jesus Babylon Bee, because the spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you plainly see, right? He's like trying to prove that he's like I'm not a ghost, like seriously, guys. But anyways, you can see right there, that we just saw in Isaiah that his love for Israel is inscribed on his hands, and then he shows his hands as he walks in. Brothers united. So Cain and Abel, what led to murder. Of course, Cain was through adultery, but they led to murder. Ham and his brothers led to adultery and a curse. Yitzchak and Ishmael was expulsion. Yaakov and Esau, there was attempted murder and separation. They never reconciled. They never really reconciled. They kind of did, but you saw that it was violent at the end there. I think Esau actually gets beheaded, and his head rolls into the cave. That's his end. Joseph and his brothers, there was, I guess, attempted murder. There was separation, slavery. There was adultery and all sorts of things that happened. But then there was forgiveness, reconciliation, and brotherhood. So this is the difference between this story and everything that has happened so far in Genesis. So Genesis is ending on a really, really good note, even though it's going to start on a bad note in Exodus. Psalm 13 or 133:1 says, as the beautiful song of a harp, that is how pleasant it is when kinsmen, when members of the same tribe sit down and dwell in union with one another. A song of ascending of David. Psalm 1, you can see right there. Okay, same one. Bezorah Yochanan, the Gospel of John 15 says, this is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. So that's like what he's telling you, like the whole Torah boils down to that. For all of you, when you get together and you can't agree on this chapter verse and that chapter verse, and you think you understand the Torah better than you understand the Torah, and this person claims you're sinning because you're not keeping to my interpretation of it, and that, all this stuff, and that's it. We can't be friends, and we're going to start our own group, and then that group splits, and that group splits, and there's no love. He's like, look, this is why Christianity gets it wrong, and they think the Torah is done away with. It's not. But it's like, guys, like if there's no love, then there's no Torah, right? This is why he says that you love one another. We know that he never did away with the Torah. And this is why he says, he shows, like, if you want to know what the greatest command is, greater love hath no man than this, than a man laid down his life for his friends. And this is what Yehuda eventually had to get to. Remember last week when he said, if anything happens to Benjamin, it will be my life, right? He lays his life down, and he had to get to that point as well. You're my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. Henceforth, I call you not servants, for the servants knoweth not what his Lord doeth, but I have called you friends. For all things that I have heard of my Father, I have made known to you. John 15. 1 John 3:16 says, hereby perceive we the love of Elohim, because he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. So if there is a Torah group that you want to be a part of, that's, like they can, you can like radically disagree with them on things. But like if they're willing, like, and again, I'm challenging all of you guys. Let's start treating Christianity that way. Like, love your brothers. So yeah, you know what, they're keeping on a different day. You know what, they don't get all the commands, and maybe, you know what, maybe they are obstinate and rebellious. And I'm not talking about those people, like the people that are in contempt. I'm talking about people who are just still young on their walk. They've been lied to. They're ignorant. They don't get it yet. They may never get it. Just do this to them and show them, excuse me, show them how good Yah's instructions in righteous living truly is. Show them what it is to live it. Do this. We'll end on this thought. Zechariah 12. The burden of the word of Yahuwah for Yasharel, saith Yahuwah, which stretches forth the heavens and lays the foundation of the earth, all by his hand, and forms the ruach of man within him. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come up against Jerusalem. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplications. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourns for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. Enjoy your Sabbath rest, everyone. Shabbat shalom one last time. Let's do this again.